Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, once again, everyone. So it's time for another, few episodes of Zack Morris's Trash. Okay, sorry, that was really bad, really off key. My apologies. Any blood sipping from your ears, you have my apologies for. Anyways, let's go ahead.
Zack Morris is trash.
It's career week at Bayside. Zack is sad to learn he can't live off his parents forever. Zack wants to be a game show host, making a profession of putting strangers through his nonsense. Slater's preparing for his big wrestling match against Valley. He's ready to hit the beach after practice, but Zack says no distractions on the road to victory. Slater wonders why Zack suddenly gives a shit about anyone but himself. Surprise! He doesn't. Slater's wrestling Nedick, Valley's undefeated champ. Every year, Zack gambles on Bayside and loses. But this year, Slater is a guaranteed win. What will Zack win? A brand new dirt bike that's actually used. It belongs to the guy Slater's wrestling who took Zack's bet. Lisa wants to go into fashion. Zack makes her news all about him to do more bad game show host material nobody wants. That's somehow the worst performance at a table with chicken hat sorcery. Kelly wants to be an actress with lots of kids. Zack graciously offers to help. Slater doesn't have a career. Zack says who needs one? High school wrestling will obviously last forever. Slater's real friends implore him to think of the future. Zack is pretend dirt biking with Screech in a delusional fantasy where girls are clamoring to hop on his overcrowded, underpowered pre-owned vehicle. Screech wonders how Zack can bet a dirt bike if he does not own one. Who needs a dirt bike when Slater is a lock? Zack commands Slater to get his lazy butt to practice, but Slater quit wrestling to find his calling. Instead of congratulating him on his newfound discipline, Zack calls him crazy. Zack is seeking counsel from Poultry the Magnificent, who says his dad quit driving a taxi and his mom made him cook and he hated cooking or whatever, who cares, so he went back to driving a taxi. This gives Zack a great idea. He calls Slater's dad, pretending to be from school, to rat on Slater for quitting. Zack checks if Slater is filling his time productively without wrestling. Those are the exact words his dad used. Slater needs a new activity, but he just wants to hang out with girls. Zack knows a place he says is definitely full of girls. Cooking Club, of course. Zack is positive Slater will be so devastated by the female company and delicious food that he'll go back to sweaty dude fights. Zack joins Cooking Club to laugh at Slater's ridiculous apron, except Zack got the only goofy apron in the joint. Wow, really showed him, Zack. Cooking Club is fine, I guess. Nobody cares. Everyone, except Zack, made a decent cake. Slater is an exceptional chef. He has a natural talent that Zack ignores to whine about getting his face punched over his latest fraudulent wager. Someone tipped Nedick off to Slater's baking. Slater is proud of his culinary capabilities. Nedick mocks Slater's dumb apron. Gee, wonder who's feeding him this apron intel. But instead of taking the bait, Slater relaxes into his new and upgraded life. Nedick says if nobody fights, he wins by default. Zack is sure someone will step up. Nedick says someone better, because if someone doesn't, and he doesn't get his bike, he's going to fuck Zack's world up sideways. But instead of taking the world fucking punches he earned, Zack volunteers Screech to wrestle an undefeated heavyweight champion. A champion with a very real personal motive to win. Zack's brilliant plan is to make Slater feel bad about Screech's certain death, so he'll volunteer to take his place. And if Zack's wrong, he'll name the gym after his deceased lackey, a hollow promise he is in no position to ratify. Zack pulls Slater from the kitchen for Operation Guilt Trip. Slater laughs at anyone being foolish enough to send Screech against that Widowmaker. Zack pushes him again, but Slater has to go check on his quiche and nurture his promising new passion. Screech takes a sad crack at intimidating Nedick, who mercifully tries to get rid of him. So Screech is forced to say unforgivable things about Nedick's family at Zack's behest. Zack says Slater is not coming, then does nothing to stop the bloodbath he arranged. Screech is about to get his spine snapped like a twig when Slater comes to his rescue, thank God, and whoops Nedick post-haste, while Zack does zero. Slater's quiche was ruined because of Zack's locker room shaming. Now he's back to not worrying about his career until it will be far too late. And Zack yells he won his bike in front of the one person who shouldn't hear he was gambling. Fucking idiot. Let's review. Zack Morris gambled on a high school wrestling match with a dirt bike he didn't have. Then when his friend, concerned for his future, tried to better himself, used life lessons from a rooster wizard to shame him back into violent sports. Only his brain-dead scheme didn't work, because Cooking Club rules. And there's nothing wrong with aprons. Then when Slater displayed a real gift, unsuccessfully tried to embarrass him again, and played with Screech's life to guilt a reluctant Slater into abandoning his dreams to clean up Zack's lethal disaster. All for a dirt bike Zack didn't even get because he can't keep his mouth shut. Zack Morris is trash.
Zack Morris is trash. Zack Morris.
Okay, that was a summer party one. So going to just edit this out. Where are we at?
Zack Morris is trash.
It's the first day of senior year. Zack's eager to exploit susceptible freshmen. Like this kid looking for the bathroom. Zack says freshmen pee at home unless you buy one of his passes. It's going to be a long year. Kelly wants to know who found dates for the senior party. Zack says the hard part is turning babes down. A lie. And Belding has a C-plot wig. Who cares? Zack spies a new woman to harass and demands her attention. Must be her first day. He'd remember her beautiful face.
I bet you say that to all the girls.
Well, I do. But this time I mean it.
Zack's corny mind games somehow work. Slater takes the non-creep approach, asking permission to sit. What's her name? Joanna. And where she's from. You know, normal human shit. Zack arrives late.
Hey, boys and girls, it's time to rock and roll. Let the party begin.
To hold up class like an asshole. Zack and Slater both met a girl. Slater says she has a pretty smile. Zack uses her to call another woman ugly.
She makes Madonna look like Bart Simpson.
Slater sees his special someone. Zack says, no dummy, that's mine. Instead of talking to his close friend of many years. Zack asks if Slater invited her to the party yet so he can beat him to it, instigating an awkward double invite that overwhelms Joanna. Joanna wants time to think. Zack signals they should not leave her alone with her lady thoughts, then kicks Slater's chair to humiliate him. Unlike Slater, Zack does not ask permission to sit down and crowds them at a desk meant for two. Causing a scene Zack tries to resolve with unwanted touching, landing them all extra homework. Slater apologizes for Zack. Zack offers to help Joanna do the punitive assignments with a study session at his place tonight. Slater wants to take her to a movie tomorrow. A real date. Instead of Zack's sad, transparent attempt to graze a butt cheek while reaching for a pencil.
Put our heads together so our minds can touch.
Really?
Go with it. It's a proven study technique.
Slater interrupts Zack's sham studies to say he owes him $20 and he's here to work it off. A valiant effort to guard this young lady in peril and remove Zack's homework that is surely just a list of sneaky ways to touch a thigh. Zack tells him to beat it. Joanna feels bad because Zack is acting like a jerk, then invites Slater to join because if they are, in fact, here to study, the more the merrier. Slater takes Joanna on a legitimate date. Zack has Screech pose as a menacing usher, then hires a woman pretending to be Slater's mom to say Slater invited her to the movies.
Never met this woman before in my life.
How could you treat me this way on my birthday?
Real classy touch. Screech corroborates the despicable story of Slater's momposter. Joanna, mortified, makes room for this stranger while Zack gloats. Slater accurately feels that wrecking his date by making it look like he hates his mother was too low, even for Zack. Zack says it was retaliation. Forgetting his chair kick started all of this. Zack escalates his smack talk with a weak shove, and after getting shoved back, sucker punches Slater in the face. Slater, a trained fighter, defends himself and uses his body to end Zack's spasmodic flailing. Belding realizes this must be over a girl. He warns 22 years ago, a woman ruined one of his friendships forever. Zack's simple ass wonders what the very obvious point of that story is. Belding makes them shake and agree to move on. But instead of moving on, Zack hounds Joanna about the party. She's not going with either of you, dumbass. Zack immediately runs his mouth. Zack enters the party pouting. Where's Slater?
Slater who?
Very mature. Slater wishes everyone a great year, then politely removes himself from Zack's toxic environment. Zack bullies Slater, who just wants a drink, then splashes him. The fuck kind of move is that? Slater defends himself from Zack's attacks, then helps Zack with the only chance of getting his dick wet anytime soon.
No!
Belding intervenes, and Zack feels safe enough to get physical again. Belding's C-plot wig falls off, and their shared laughter offers a moment of clarity. Slater, of course, makes the first apology, and we never see Joanna ever again. Because after the misery Zack put her through in the first week of a new school, she probably fucking killed herself. Let's review. Zack Morris called dibs on the new girl, but after she hit it off with Slater, tried to pressure her into a date. When she wanted time and space to think, gave her neither, and commenced his violence. Then tried to fix the consequences of his behavior with a bogus study trap. And when Slater took Joanna on an actual date, framed him for scorning his mother on her birthday. But instead of apologizing, kept pushing. Then sucker punched his friend over a girl he met 2 days ago. And learned nothing, continuing his harassment and assault. And couldn't be the first to say sorry, and never apologized to Joanna. Zack Morris is trash.
Zack Morris is trash.
In order to work together, we gotta see what each other can do.
Zack Morris is trash.
laughing.
Kelly's parents had an emergency and she's stuck with her baby brother Billy. But cheerleading yearbook photos are first period. Slater says of course the gang will help. Zack says no thanks to that baby. But since everyone else has academic priorities, of which Zack has none, Zack needs to care for Billy. So Zack throws Kelly's baby brother in a duffel bag, rolling around, unsecured. Shockingly, Billy does not like this. Zack tries bargaining with the bag baby to stop crying. He says he doesn't know much about babies, which checks out. He's storing one in a bag. Zack orders Billy not to pee, something he's surely done by now out of fear. Billy keeps crying because he is trapped in a zippered prison with no visibility and limited oxygen. Zack takes credit for the loud whining, then mimes over the wails as Billy's pained, ignored outbursts fill the class. Lisa says Kelly had a major accident. Zack shows zero sympathy.
Kelly sure picked a great time to break her arm.
The gang agrees the best thing to do is leave Billy with the nurse or Belding. Zack's ego shoots down both ideas because he falsely believes he can handle this task that he's clearly incapable of. Zack's debating if he can hide Billy in his locker during his track picture. Slater realizes Billy, who has been crying for hours, might need to be changed. Great, so he's been sliding around that bag in his own mess. But because Zack feels a prideful need to prove he alone can care for a baby he is well on his way to murdering, he destroys Billy's last diaper. Zack wraps Billy's unwashed, rashy, shitty ass in one of Slater's old shirts, then fantasizes about a tiny blonde version of himself who sneaks contraband into school and sucks at sports and grows up to be the worst kind of college bro. That sounds about right. Zack wants to get rid of Billy to take his track picture, because an athletic glamour shot is definitely more important than keeping him alive. The gals warn they will be too busy in home ec class to watch him. Zack says that's perfect. Maybe they can cook his hungry baby ass a meal. Home ec is offering an unexpectedly convenient cover. But the magic waiter, who also takes school photos, sure, why not, wants a class picture. They put Billy down and signal Screech, who was sent by Zack to pick him up. But when Screech returns Billy, that's not Billy at all. Where is that baby? Zack reprimands Screech for botching the baby errand he could have done himself, then yells at the gals who were clear they'd be too busy to watch him. Zack says we need to find this baby. Yeah, no shit. And despite all of this being his fault, blames everyone else. Kelly returns from the hospital, wanting to see her brother. Zack lies and sends Jesse to get him from that place he is, then stalls by having Kelly pose for a picture, while Zack points at everyone to secretly slam dozens of lockers behind her back. The perfect plan. The gang hears Billy. Belding somehow got a hold of him. Truly a life-saving miracle. Zack lets it slip how worried he was, alerting Kelly to the fact that he lost that child. Then covers with a very unconvincing lie that they left Billy with Belding to take their pictures, which is, by the way, what they should have done. And they're here to thank Belding, who has no idea what they're talking about. Why doesn't he remember? Because he's getting old and already suffering from memory loss, gaslighting him into believing he has the early stages of dementia. Siegfried and Polaroid shows up to immortalize the deceit. Zack offers to carry Billy back to Kelly's, revealing his investment in this project was all to get into her pants. And Billy's first word is Zack, because this egomaniac talks about himself all day long, apparently in third person. Gross. And we never see Billy ever again, because that baby probably fucking killed himself. Let's review. When Kelly needed someone to watch her infant brother, Zack threw that baby in a duffel bag, then ignored his desperate cries for hours as he repeatedly soiled himself in darkness, and only thought of himself when Kelly broke her arm and let his pride get in the way of Billy's safety. Then when someone else had to inform him about baby diaper changes being a thing, let his ego interfere once more, wrapping Billy's filthy body in a sweaty shirt, and gave Billy to girls who said they were unable to keep an eye on him, then got pissed when he went missing. Also, Zack could get a dumb yearbook photo, and lied to Kelly about Billy's whereabouts, and lied to Belding about having dementia, and only did any of this to get laid. Zack Morris is trash.
Zack Morris is trash.
Like I said, always freaking hilarious to me. Some episodes more than others. But anyways, that was a few more episodes of Zack Morris's Trash. Feel free to tune in the next time that we watch Zack Morris's Trash or other interesting content. But seriously, as always, feel free to share, subscribe, hopefully give me a like. And feel free to leave any comments, suggestions, constructive criticism is always welcome. Thanks. Peace.